Kylie Davis from CoreLogic. In September this year, Elite Agent brought together some big names to discuss the future of prospecting in real estate. Big data is a term that gets used a lot in this industry, but what is it? How can real estate agents use it to prospect and get new listings? And how is big data different to the normal data that real estate agents use? In this video, we examine all of these issues and some of the challenges that real estate agents in the industry are likely to face as they use them. Enjoy. Does anyone want to have a go at defining big data? Big data?
Well, I guess, I mean, I'm the non-technically minded person when it comes to the big data, so I've just looked into some of the trends around big data only recently about some of the intel some of these large organisations have. So I'm happy to break down, very intrinsically some of the things there, around things like Facebook, who everyone obviously clearly knows. I was reading recently that they have now created an algorithm where they can actually determine whether your relationship is going to fail. I don't know if you've heard this. Obviously, a lot of these things are supposedly behind the scenes, but if you think about that, again, that's exactly, it's not creepy in the slightest. They've created an algorithm where they can determine how intelligent you are. They can create they've created an algorithm where they can sense your emotional state. How happy, how sad you are. I was reading the other day that there's now a large company in the US that's a HR brand, and they've determined, or they're able to determine who is actually going to leave a company within the next 6 months, and they do so by studying your behaviours.
So what are 3 things that you think, Doug, real estate agents can and should be using big data for?
Well, the first thing is the predictive analysis. I've 3 experts to my left here who will no doubt obviously talk in greater detail about that, but there is now an ability to be able to second guess people, again, just based on their consumer behaviours, their everyday lives. So I think the reality of the situation is that we're all fighting in the bottom of the funnel at the moment as an industry. And as a result of that, that's where it becomes a bloodbath. We undercut each other on fees, we throw in marketing and so on and so forth. But if you can get to people towards the bottleneck, the top of that funnel, you're far more inclined to be able to have sensible conversations and actually demonstrate value long before that person looks to list the property.
So just to wind back a little bit, what are some of the ways at the moment that agents might not be aware of that they could be using big data? So in the US, we're seeing that real estate agents are starting to use data to make predictions about who's going to sell. How is that working in Australia? What are you guys doing? Georgie?
As you know, Kylie, we've developed our own propensity to list model. So there's 3 of those around the table now that I can see. But from our point of view, we're more interested in a sort of individual level. These guys have got a huge amount of behavioural information. We've got the demographic information and the life stage information to be able to predict when somebody's going to do something. Like I said, we're more interested in bridging that gap around what are your existing customers doing. If you've already bought in that brand association and somebody's had a good experience, how can you maintain that and continue to segment your messaging to get the right message across at the right time?
So what's the information in a real estate agent's database at the moment that they might not be using properly or might not know how powerful that is? What is the stuff that's being overlooked?
Real estate agents are brilliant at selling houses. That's what they do. So they're not database administrators. One technique which should be encouraged, and I know that some of the larger organisations are doing so, it's just centralising that data and bringing it up to a head office level, so that you get a full view, a full single customer view. You'd be amazed if you're running things at a franchise level with spreadsheets and databases. You'd be amazed how much crossover there is, for example. So how do you control the fact that your franchise is talking to 3 or 4, the same person through 3 or 4 different franchisees? Like I said, we've just gone through the process of selling and buying, and I'm being contacted by 3 different McGrath franchisees.
Annie, what's the work that you guys are doing?
Yep, so that's obviously through activation. One of the things we've worked with CoreLogic on is actually the Smart List product. Essentially, it's taking all the information we have about the household $9.8 million properties, 9.8 million properties here in Australia, which is through the CoreLogic data, tying together with all the market trend data analysis information that you have access to, together with all the consumer insights data that we have, to try and predict who are more likely ready to sell through similar sort of consumer type behaviour, whether it's upsizing, downsizing, or even just the area itself has been good with recent sales.
So the output from that is a list of people who are
more likely
to list. So they're not definitely going to, no dead certs necessarily, but it's a warm list.
Absolutely, yeah. With all predictive modelling, there's no 100% certainty. It's about highlighting, identifying the group of people that are more likely based on the behaviour that they've indicated, and then ultimately it does come down to activation, the conversations that the real estate agents actually have with them, which actually generates the interest as well. So having the right conversations, the behaviour that you understand, sort of that sits behind the algorithms that identified them in the first place, could increase the chances of actually converting into a list.
So Doug, you've been using this list, haven't you?
Yeah, we have indeed. Yeah.
And how's it going? How's it?
It's early days. We're only probably a couple of months in, so I think we're one of the first cabs off the rank. A lot of the data's coming through, you can see, is certainly clean and accurate. But I mean, the numbers I think you're talking about, I think it's 1 in 10 people will list their house within the first 6 months, and 1 in 5 will list within the first 12 months. Even if they're exaggerated or embellished, they're still pretty impressive numbers. So our offices are still trying to come to terms with it. And obviously, again, it's about the approach, because you've got a list of names and numbers. Obviously, you've got to figure out the approach in terms of actually contacting these people. You know, is it a mailbox drop? Is it an intelligent letter? Is it an email? Is it a phone call? So that's where we're probably still trying to come to grips or come to terms with it. But I think so far so good.
The smart list actually triples the coverage. So you can say, I want to attack these sort of people who are warm leads. You might be able to find a few 100,000. With smart list, it triples that. So you're almost looking at 1 million who have that strong propensity to list.
I will add a comment on big data, and it continues on to the application. So even when you're using smart lists, this is a derived product from big data. Now, the other part of that is capturing the response. So collecting it enables a whole new set of data to be collected. So what was the message that you delivered? What response did you get back? And really feeding that back into the algorithm itself. So I'm not exactly sure how the product all feeds together, but that's really the amazing thing about big data. It's not just limited to one point in time, one product. It's actually the data you're collecting. It has a network effect. So you collect data and then you build something. That data, which is newly able to be collected, is now fed back in, and it's just a continuous cycle. And yeah, it's really phenomenal.
So where we might go back to you, Annie, and look at, so Facebook is one of the biggest big data collectors of all, and I've got 4 million a minute or something likes is coming through on Facebook. What are you guys doing in the Facebook space? Because that's pretty exciting.
So one of the feedback we've always received from clients is actually not being able to activate directly all the insights that you bring out of big data. And as informative, as useful, as interesting big data tells you, not being able to actually activate and do something about it operationally isn't valuable to our clients in all industries, and real estate being one of them as well. And so actually what we've got with partnership with Facebook is essentially an activation channel, media activation. We've created a number of different segments, 150 plus segments, across both sort of consumer type behaviour, socio-demographics, and also obviously property attributes related segments where it allows any real estate agents in particular, I guess, for them to target specific types of people that they want to talk to, and it then come down to the creative. So if they want to try and activate and reach people that are more likely to list because they're going through a particular life stage change, there is a life stage segments that you can buy in terms of young families, older families. There's always a hypothesis that the second child triggers the upsizing of a house moving. So those are segments that you can buy if you want to talk to potential buyers in the market as well. Similarly, you can go on to there looking for segments, different types of segments, geographically, but also through different attributes, large houses.
So using the Q segments as a real estate agent, I can say I want to attract not just male or female between 25 and 64, but I can actually say I want to attract. Most of my sellers at the moment are coming from women. They're usually in their mid-30s and are having their second baby, and so they're looking to sell their property, so I can target them within, say, 10 kilometres of my office in my area, something like that?
Something like that, but maybe with a slightly broader reach, but yes.
I don't think it necessarily has to affect the targeting in that way so much as segmenting your message. So if you're talking to a whole group of people who look like they're going to be displaying a behaviour, that's great, but there are very different motivations behind those behaviours. So it could be that one group is moving up because they need extra space. There's another group of people equally likely to move, just as valuable to a real estate agent, who are going to be looking to decrease the size that they're living in, so on and so forth. That it's understanding those pressures and then getting your messaging right. I think the messaging is the key. If you're advertising on Facebook, if a real estate agent's advertising on Facebook, and they're going out with the message that just says list your house now, it doesn't really appeal to anyone. But if you've got a picture of a lovely house in the burbs with a young family holding up 2 kids, the mind tells you, actually, that's me, they're talking to me, this resonates better with me, this is more relevant, and it avoids the whole question, why are people advertising to me on Facebook, because it becomes a natural part of the conversation.
So Josh, you would argue, I guess, that you wouldn't be doing an ad at all, you'd be doing some piece of really useful content.
I think every real estate agent, anyone who is on Facebook, no matter what industry you're in, will have noticed over the last few years the decline in the amount of people that their posts would get to. When they post something to Facebook, less and less people over the last few years are seeing what they're posting, unless they put some dollars behind it. So I think what we really need to understand is that Facebook is a business, just like anyone else's business, and they make money through advertising. There's a great little quote by, I think his name's Howard Luck-Gossage, who said, "Nobody reads ads, people read what interests them. Sometimes it's an ad." And I think what Quantium and the big data and all these numbers that we get to use now to promote our businesses, it allows us to be more relevant, which people in because they're actually getting stuff that matters to them, that's relevant.
So to summarise, what you're seeing with your clients is that those who are using big data are spending less on their social media marketing, but getting the same or better results because they're more targeted.
They're spending the same amount, but they're getting for properties, up to 60% decrease in the cost for the same results.
So Georgie, some of the work that you're doing though is also in that multi-channel space as well. Do you want to run us through how that works? It's not just in social media, it's in other as well.
Absolutely. So I'll give you an example of that, and it's actually one that you touched on. Another challenge that one of our clients came to us and requested our help with was the fact that they were looking to push out a big campaign around project marketing. So they just built a new community out in the Farm Belt, and they were looking to sell stock. We've done a lot of work with the likes of Stockland and previously Lend-Lease around this sort of work, and this client came to us and said, got this campaign up, what can you do? And what we actually, we did a bit of market research to say, right, what's currently happening? And it was a bit of a sample size of one, but it was a real sort of eureka moment, and it speaks to exactly what you were saying. I opened up the Inner West Courier, and out fell 6 different lovely glossy brochures telling me to move to the apartments down the road. And that's coming to a house with 2 adults, 2 kids and a cat that wouldn't get into 2 units. So when money's being spent in this way with this real scattergun approach, then we know that we can do much better than that given the data at our fingertips. So one of the pieces of work that we undertook following that, and we're just about to bring out this series of products, is we did a huge profiling piece on who lives in existing new communities, who has been attracted to live in Kellyville previously into one of these, new build McMansions. So we've done the profiling, we've understood who is currently in there, and then we do lookalike analysis to say who else looks like that. And similarly, who has, so some of the data that we get from Cordell, which is owned by CoreLogic, we can see new developments that have gone up in the last 5 years. So we've literally just taken all of those addresses in and we said, right, who's moved into a new development in the last 5 years? And we've understood what life stages go into that. Where do the young first-time home buyers who then buy in the city, what did they look like before? Where are the single guys or single ladies who are buying a nice bolt hole in Piermont, what do they look like? and then again replicating that on the data to say who else looks like that. And what that gives you the ability to do, to answer your question, instead of going to everyone that reads the Inner West Courier, I'm now saying, well, actually there's pockets of people that live in the Inner West who very much look like they would appreciate an offer from a high-rise in Piermont that's just been completed. How can I, instead of wasting my budget speaking to 50,000 people, of which, exactly right, how can I avoid this scattergun approach? How can I speak to your point, the right people, the relevant people, and how can I talk to them in a way that they cannot miss my brand? So I can push out an email to them. I can have them see my brand all over social media. Then I can send them out a nice glossy brochure, and instead of having it go to 10 houses, which cost me the same of getting one through the door to that person who's already seen my brand, and then my salespeople can ring them up and say, hey, I don't know if you noticed that came through. So at that point, you found the right person, and exactly to your point, you're not spending any more, you're just not wasting as much. You're spending what you want on finding the right people and converting them, having a proper conversion sales funnel.
Not reach as many people. I think that's the thing. We're blinded when we go on social media. Everyone wants more likes on Facebook. It's a bit of a contest. I think the important thing to note is it doesn't matter how many people you're reaching. It's how many people that care and how many people that matter to you. So I think with a lot of the campaigns that we've run as case studies for CoreLogic and Quantium they've reached far fewer people than the general segmenting when we're advertising. But that doesn't matter. It's been far more effective.
So that idea of lookalike audiences, but also the behaviour of agents to think that more is more, and that 100 flyers is better than 10 direct mails or 10 direct emails. What's our thoughts around the power? Like, Alex, do you want to talk about? Sorry, Mitch. Do you want to talk about the power of a lookalike audience and how to use that? And then maybe we can throw open the debate around agent behaviour.
I think, so lookalikes have been around for a while. It's about, trying to find similar types of customers, similar behaviours, so therefore you can infer what they're going to do. Actually, I think our algorithm it does it disjustice to call it lookalikes. It's really a predictive engine. We're using kind of some of the most sophisticated algorithms that exist today to predict who's likely to do various things.
Is there common agreement on what the factors are around real estate and what's going to make someone one list and what some of those triggers might be? Do you want to throw out what they might be?
Yeah, there's a lot. So when we built the smart list, we obviously threw every single sort of data sets that we had at the model to create sort of that scoring, coming up with the highest ones. The one hard thing about a lookalike model is that it's a bit of a black box in itself in terms of algorithms, so it's hard to say one factor more predictive than the other, because there is correlation effects between sort of different factors as well when you throw them into it.
So suddenly there's baby formula and nappies in and more beer from Dad.
Spend on milk is a huge driver of new families, of course. And then you get other things that are more behavioural that you wouldn't think of. So just someone's total change in spend might indicate a change in lifestyle or a change in a job. So if they're just spending more every week at, say, Woolworths, their total budget's gone up, perhaps that's indicating they've moved in with someone, maybe they're looking for a different house. There's a lot of behavioural type factors that come into it.
Right. And so what are some of the other behavioural factors that signal other life changes? So divorce, another good one to know that is always the agent's friend in terms of listing.
Could be. we see so people shopping at multiple Woolworths, so they might have been shopping at one and then all of a sudden they're shopping at multiple. Could that be an indicator that they've...
Off the credit card or something. That it's okay.
Exactly. Does that mean that they're spending time at some other place, or divorce is on the cards?
It's the 4 Ds. I've always looked at real estate as the 4 Ds: death, debt, divorce and downsizing. And again, if you look at consumerism and their behaviours, they will always reflect one of those 4. So without those 4 things, well, I wouldn't be in a job.
So no, that's right. So big data is able to identify more quickly and in a more focused way those 4 Ds for you before they've asked you to come and sit in front of them and pitch.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things I want to stress as well, just further to what's already been said, is that agents watching this mustn't confuse what's being said in regards to the detail that these guys can drill down to by comparison to what's available to them on the surface. So there's a massive difference in just boosting a post because Facebook allow you maybe to post obviously a target agenda, maybe a general demographic or geographical area. this is a different kettle of fish altogether. So agents got to be very careful not to confuse what they currently do with what's being spoken about on this table today.
Does it allow agents to become less busy in terms of more focused, less busy?
I think again, it's not necessarily less busy, it just eliminates the waste or the profligacy. Again, it just means that they know who they should be targeting and who they should be talking to. And we've talked about things like cold calling. It doesn't even necessarily need to be cold calling, because sometimes that's a very awkward conversation. Who are you? How'd you get my number? Don't call me again. It could be something simple as what Georgie was saying. Start producing paraphernalia that's targeted to that owner at that address that's useful to them. You're ahead of the curve, so to speak, because relationships are built for information, not promotion. Let's not forget that. So it doesn't necessarily need to be all phone based. It could be literature that you're sending them in the post, of course.
Is that how you decreep big data? So by actually not having a conversation that says I know all these things about you, but actually is about providing information that sort of magically turns up at the right time or when you're in the right headspace for it.
I think so. We all know that it exists, don't we, on a large scale, but obviously it's one of those, the stars have aligned almost. It's like, I was only just thinking about doing that yesterday.
The universe really thinks I should move.
And that's what it is.
No, big data does.
What a coincidence, and this company's given me this, and I was only thinking about that yesterday. So again, we all sort of know it exists, we know it's out in the ether, but then we sometimes forget it at the crucial moment. So I think for me, you're right, the term you've used is decreep. I think the softly catchy monkey approach is probably the easier way. Otherwise you do spook people and they won't talk to you again. And in fact, they'll probably report you to the police for stalking.
Mitch or John, do you guys want to just give us a little brief overview on how people's privacy is protected in this data? So we're talking about individual targeting, and but we're also talking about people's privacy being protected. That seems a little bit contradictory. How can you have this much knowledge about me but still not have Doug know me intimately before he talks to me?
So the beauty is that we don't actually need to know any individual person. We don't need to actually know exact address or exact details of name or any individual details. All the matching that we do is on, if you like, encrypted information. So there's a key, if you like. We never get the key to unlock that information. We can match individual to individual, and we can provide targeting based on that. But we will never be able to look up ourselves or look up any individual person on the data set. That passes all the legal tests, but it also passes all the tests from our partners, and they're the hardest, people to meet in terms of big banks or retailers. Their test has to be legally right, but I have to avoid the front page of the newspaper kind of catastrophe. They go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and they're all comfortable with it. So.
Yeah, from Data Republic's perspective, we don't sell any lists of customers, so go out and acquire these 10 new customers. We actually enable organizations to gain more information, attributes, propensities about their existing customer base. So in that regard, you can't find any new information out about sort of unknown customers. It has to be somebody on your own list, and you've
already got that relationship with them.
You already have the relationship, and you may just pick up a new factor about how likely they are to move house or their price sensitivity. So these are all things that you can infer from other behaviors that they have on these other data sets, such as grocery spend. You can actually learn about people's price sensitivity. So whether that's feeds into a model, sort of a black box model, or it's something that you'd want directly, really depends on the appetite of the real estate agent. But yeah, it's really just about getting to know your customers better. There's nothing malicious in it, but there's the creepiness factor, which you alluded to earlier.
So what we're seeing is that there's huge untold piles of information going in. The algorithms are kind of correlating and recognising different things about it and making coming out with recommendations on it, but all of that's been completely depersonalised. But then when it spits out the other end, when something like a smart list or something like the work that you're doing, Georgie, you do then get it sort of matched back to people who match the criteria, but I guess you're never really sure which criteria they're matching. And so the best way to handle that as an agent is to assume that yes, they match the criteria, but you still need to build the relationship with them as you would if you met them in the pub or if you met them at an open or in a normal human interaction. and then start again almost from there, just sort of secure in the knowledge that this isn't a completely cold lead with someone who doesn't ever want to talk to you.
I think also if you look at the numbers, if you're just using the scattergun approach and going out to all and sundry, the average hold period now of a property in Australia is actually now over 11 years. The erroneous views is around 7, but that's changed a long time ago. Well, that's right, but it's 11.3 years. So you could spend an age going out to all these people who aren't going to move for another God knows how long, or you can utilise information, data like this, and as I said, hone in on your target. I know which of the two I'd rather use.